There were once 3 demons sat in a hole at the end of the world, and they were utterly bored. Although they could run or crawl or fly around the world in the time it took 1 drop of their burning saliva to hit the ground, though they could scan your mind and heart for every thought and feeling contained, though they could rip the flesh off your body so fast that only the heart, the juiciest part of all, would remain beating inside the skeleton, yet they could think of nothing to do. "Anybody hungry?" said the first demon, a skinny white creature with infected cuts that he was always picking at. "What's on the menu?" said the second yellow demon, enormous, and his head was just one big mouth. "Anything on the earth." "I had that yesterday." "All right, well, what about if we go and try and start a war between the humans?" "Fool, do you really think they need our help with that?" said the third demon, a slithering, snake-like creature, entirely blue, but with evil yellow eyes. And so there they were, fidgeting, crawling, slithering around, masters of the earth, and utterly bored. But then the blue demon had an idea. "What about if we play a game?" "A game?" "Yes. Each of us will try to steal what is most important to the humans." "Well, great idea, and I'm going first," the white demon said. And with one spring of his skinny white legs, he bounced out of the hole and around to the other side of the world. Soon enough, he was balanced on a rooftop in a city in North Europe, staring down at the people in the streets. "Well, now let's see. They like looking at things. I could go and steal all their eyes. No, not very subtle, is it? Oh, I've got it." And he bounced down to the street below, opened up his bag, and stole what he thought was most important. Back in the hole on the other side of the world, the yellow and the blue demon were surprised to see him return so quickly, covered in red patches. "What's the matter? You've been in a fight, have you?" "Oh, no, better than that. I've gone and stolen the colour red." "Oh, you should see it. No more pretty sunsets. The sun looks like a bit of ash going down. And no more kissing. Oh, no. Lips the colour of old iron aren't very inviting. And best than that, everyone keeps burning themselves on fires they think have gone out." "You've no idea what you're doing. Let me show you how it's done." And then the yellow demon began to inhale. So his already swollen belly inflated even further until he began to float up and out of the hole. And catching a passing wind, he found himself blown across the world and floated above a marketplace in Africa. And he saw that while people had to work hard, and though it was hot, they managed to get through their day with a smile and a joke. "This really is too easy." And he floated down with his bag wide open. Back in the hole, the white and the blue demon heard the approaching sound of children laughing. "Oh, that greedy gannet! He's gone and forgotten all about the game and stopped off in some kid's playground for lunch." "Oh, no, I haven't," said the yellow demon, floating down. though I did think about it. But no, I've gone and stolen all of the laughter in the world. Now, every time something funny happens, only tears come out. Beat that if you can. Fools, the blue demon said, who was a good deal older than the other two, and he knew full well what was most important to the humans. He crawled out of the hole with his sack wide open and slithered around the world and stole all of the stories. Stories? What's the point of that? You can't even eat them. Simpletons. Stories are what hold the humans together. Without them, they will be helpless. And to the grudging admiration of the other two demons, they had to admit he was exactly right. Because in the following weeks, without any stories, society began to fall to pieces. Because without stories to help people see somebody else's point of view and step into their shoes, everyone began to think that they alone were right. Without stories to help connect them to the lessons of the past, people began to make the same mistakes again and again. And without stories to connect them to the beauty and the meaning of life, people began to lose all hope and will to carry on. Families fell apart. Societies began to dissolve. And the entire earth was consumed in one enormous cry of every man for himself. Now it happened at this time there was a young girl named Libby, and she stood on the balcony of her house, looking down at the street below, at the anarchy that prevailed. What happened? She asked herself, but she didn't know. So she looked up at the sky and said, "What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened?" over and over, until she fell into a kind of a trance. And she had a kind of a vision of three creatures, disgusting creatures, in an old rotten hole somewhere. They were covered in some kind of bright colour that Libby didn't remember ever seeing before. And they had their ears pressed to a bag, and they were falling about laughing. "Those rascals," Libby said to herself when she woke up. "They're the ones responsible." And she knew somehow it was up to her to put things right. She walked into the kitchen of her house and filled a lunchbox with an apple and a flask of water and some cookies. And then she walked out to take back what was stolen. The sight of an 8-year-old girl walking out of town all by herself would normally have raised a few eyebrows, but as it was, everybody was too busy just trying to survive to pay any attention to her. She walked out of town and into the fields, not really knowing which way to go, but just letting the winds guide her. And she walked day after day, following that inner instinct. And all around her, the land began to grow more bare and desolate, until there were no more trees, and then no more plants. And eventually, the ground was so dusty and empty, and the sky itself had become bleak and featureless, until she couldn't tell where the sky ended and the earth began. It was on the 5th day of her walk through this featureless desert covered in white dust that she saw the faintest of shadows cross her path and disappear down a hole. Libby stood very still as a pair of green eyes observed her from within the hole. And slowly, stepping out of the hole carefully, with the utmost caution and grace, there emerged a pure white fox, so perfectly camouflaged and suited to his surroundings, it was still only by his eyes that Libby could see him at all. The fox walked around Libby 2 or 3 times, sizing her up, before seeming to lose interest. "What on earth are you doing here?" he asked her. "I've come to take back what was stolen," Libby told him. "Oh, yes, I did hear about that. Tell me, what makes you think they'll give it back to you?" It was a simple question, but it was also proof of Libby's simplicity that she simply hadn't thought about it. It was the right thing to do, that was all that she knew. Now the fox was a cunning creature, who depended upon his wits just to get by, and to see a girl standing in front of him so heartbreakingly simple, well, it touched him to the core of his foxy heart. "Now listen here. If you go up to those demons without any kind of plan at all, they'll eat you up before you can as much as say good morning." "Then what should I do?" "You must learn the weakness of demons." And leaning close, he whispered in Livy's ear. For the demons in the hole, it had been rather a fun morning. First of all, they had a big colour fight, throwing red all over each other, which wouldn't actually have been very funny if they hadn't have drunk deep from the bag of laughter beforehand. And they were just getting ready to sit down and listen to a story from the other bag when... "I don't believe it. I can smell little girl, and I smelled her first. Wait, I think this one has something to offer us, than more than just a snack. Let's see what she wants," said the blue demon, who was a good deal more sensitive than the other two. Libby walked on. She felt the approach of something terrible, and she froze where she was, as she saw 3 of the most disgusting creatures she had ever seen emerge from the hole. The first, the skinny white demon, picking at his cuts, which oozed yellow pus everywhere. The second yellow demon, enormous, and his huge mouth drooling openly at the sight of her, his saliva coursing down his greasy skin. And the third, blue demon, perhaps less terrible to look at, but somehow all the more awful for his piercing yellow eyes that seemed to go right through her. "Hello." "Hello. You don't say hello to a demon who's going to chomp you up into little pieces." "Or who's going to squash you into chutney?" "Or who will sip your blood, drop by drop." "Yes, but then we wouldn't get to play the game." "The game? What game?" "It's a guessing game. Each of us has to try to tell a puzzle, a riddle to the other ones. And, well, if I win, then you have to give back everything you've stolen and promise never to eat us up ever again. And if you win..." "Yeah?" "Well, then you get to have me for lunch." "We could have you for lunch anyway." "Yeah, but then we wouldn't get to play the game, stupid. We accept. We're going first." Then the 3 demons huddled together and began to compose a riddle so complex they were sure that Libby would never begin to guess the answer. Then they turned and recited, "I'm neither there nor here. No one wants me, but I visit everyone. I'm only found when things disappear. And I only come when others are gone." But Libby didn't even need to think to guess the answer. Loss. How could you guess the answer so quickly? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Loss is what you brought to my world. Loss is what you gave us. Loss is what brought me here. Now it's my turn. I could be common, but I'm usually rare. I'm the sinner's hope, the criminal's prayer. I heal all wounds, no matter how deep. I'm priceless, but I come for free. And the demons, for the first time and as long as they could remember, felt the beginning of fear. They thought they knew every single riddle in existence, but this one was quite new to them. We get one guess each. Well, that's not fair. Since when were demons fair? I guess gold. Everyone hopes and prays for it. But it can't heal all wounds, can it? Next. Immortality. Everyone hopes and prays for it. You can heal all wounds if you live long enough. But it can't be common, can it? Next! Now it was the turn of the blue demon, who, being older and wiser than the other two, didn't just snatch at a guess. Instead, he used all of his demonic powers to scan Libby's heart and mind for the answer. But the longer he searched, the more frustrated he became, as he simply couldn't see it there. I give up. What is the answer? Forgiveness. The three demons felt their skin crawl, and they howled in anguish. The answer was so clear, so obvious, and yet forgiveness was such a foreign emotion to them. They couldn't see it, even when it stood right in front of them. Forgiveness was what had given Libby the courage to come here in the first place. What's to stop us eating you up anyway? Because if you did, then word might get out that you don't keep your word when you play games, and nobody will play with you ever again. The demons grit their teeth in defeat, because more than killing and hurting and torturing things, playing games was their single greatest pleasure. Despite themselves, it was their only point of honour. You've been talking to foxes. But before Libby could reply, the blue demon disappeared into the hole and re-emerged with the 3 bags. He slit them with his teeth, and the air filled with a bright red colour and thousands of voices in laughter and song, and it was just all too much. And when Libby opened her eyes, she found herself sat on the balcony of her house. Her mother walked out and put a tray of cookies and a glass of milk on a table down beside her. And Libby stood up to look down at the street below. There was a couple kissing on a street corner. And she saw some delivery men carrying heavy boxes, but they were cracking jokes as they went. And over there in the park, she wasn't sure, but it seemed like her grandfather had 2 children on his knee and was telling them something. She did hope the demons wouldn't be too bored in that nasty old hole of theirs. Why couldn't they find somewhere nicer to live? There wasn't a sound or a scent on the wind, but something told the fox he better get underground fast. And not a moment too soon, because the three demons came striding into view. You mangy furball, I'm gonna chomp you up into little bits. And I'm gonna floss my teeth with your tail. And I'm going to poison your soul, drop by drop. Oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you. You know, and why not? Because then you wouldn't find out how to eat up the humans after all. But we promised never to eat them up again, and it's all your fault. Oh, yes, I know all about the promise. But what about if you were invited to eat? You better start making sense quickly. Well, look at it this way. Can't you see the depression, the despair, the chasing after of false hopes? Everyone running after clouds of glory whilst they drag their hearts in the mud? Doesn't that sound like an invitation to eat to you? And catching the scent of depression, despair, and hopelessness on the breeze, blowing in from a nearby town, the three demons forgot about the fox and walked off in search of lunch.